John, welcome. So there's optimism around what's happened over the last 24 hours, but the reality is there is still so much trauma, destruction and uncertainty too.
That's right, Joe. There were some wonderful human moments yesterday on both sides with the reunions. One for me, a very strong, lovely moment was the photograph that the Israeli soldiers showing the mothers of the three hostages before they'd been reunited, showing them pictures of their daughters almost as proof of life. And you could see the three mothers sitting around the table, you know, desperate to sort of see images of their daughters. And it sort of cut through the politics, the hatreds, the enmities, you know, and the history in this region. Those human moments do cut through. But as you say, now it's the beginning of the next phase, both the rebuilding of southern Israel and those communities that are near the border there, the Israeli communities, and then Gaza, which is in a completely different level of devastation. I mean, I don't know how they're going to rebuild Gaza. Essentially, you know, it's just non-functioning. You only need to look at pictures of it. And it struck me the other day, of all the pictures, video and stills and film that I've looked at from Gaza over the last few months, it struck me that I've never seen in any of those images anybody eating, child, adult, anybody. No one eating any food at all, because of course there's not much there at all. You see those harrowing pictures of people scrambling to get a bowl of rice or a flour. And so now, with a lot of trucks did go in yesterday, that's good news. Hopefully there'll be as many as 400 or 500 or 600 trucks going a day. That will keep people alive, and with medications, etc. But now, how does an area demolished, very few areas in modern times have been demolished as much as Israel has demolished Gaza. So how does that be rebuilt? I think now we're going to sort of find out.
And John, I'm just interested in your perspective on some of the images from yesterday, and that was the number of Hamas members in some of those images. And because the Israeli army has been through Gaza centimetre by centimetre over the last 15 months, looking for hostages and trying to destroy any last vestiges of Hamas. And yet you still have these Hamas members there on the streets in Gaza.
Yes, Joe. Those images, I think, do disturb a lot of people around the world, and certainly here in Israel. They're not images that help in any way the situation, in my view, because men in balaclava with khaki outfits, heavy-looking men with guns, we saw many of them surrounding the three hostages when they were coming out of Gaza. So, yes, it does suggest there are still Hamas fighters there. Also, though, in Gaza, anybody can throw on, you know, that garb, that outfit. It doesn't necessarily mean that Hamas is still strong. What I'm saying is it's very difficult to know just looking at those pictures, and we're not allowed in, as you know. Israel has banned foreign media from going into Gaza. If I was in Gaza, I would try to find out who these people are. Are they Hamas? How many of them are there? To what extent is Hamas still a fighting force? Are some of these people almost like, you know, the brothers of someone who was killed who throw on his uniform? These are the things that we can't tell the world because Israel won't let the media into Gaza.
And so how will the hostage and prisoner swap work now over the next 6 weeks?
Well, Joe, there's a key day in this agreement. Day 16 has been designated as the crucial day. So 15 days from now, they will decide on phase 2. It looks like, so far, phase 1, yesterday went remarkably well, given all of the history. So each week now, there will be 3, maybe 4, sort of exponential increases in the number of Israeli hostages. And we know this sort of in this strange world of exchanges for hostages, for prisoners, this exchange rate that they have set, the negotiators, that every Israeli civilian hostage is worth 30 Palestinians. So next week it will probably be 4 or 5 Israeli hostages will come out. If it's 5, of course, that's 150 Palestinian prisoners. Now, for every Israeli soldier, and there are still some soldiers amongst those remaining hostages in Gaza, they're worth 50 Palestinians. Likewise, there's an interesting dynamic to this. Since October 7, Israel has gone around and rounded up a lot of people, arrested them. They're low-level people, threats, if at all. The West Bank that's behind me here, they have been in there and taken people away at night, and they're not on serious charges. In fact, they're not on any charges at all, many of them. And in a way, Israel uses them as bargaining chips, as tokens, you know. Like most of the 90 who were released last night here of the Palestinian side, there were several children amongst them, and a lot of the women were not serious threats at all. Whereas there are Palestinian prisoners who are in prison for 3 or 4 life terms. And so it seems to me, having covered 4 of these wars now, that the same thing often happens at the end. And I think Israel releases the Palestinians who are the least threat. It's understandable from their point of view. And so over the next 3 or 4, 5 weeks, we'll see this fascinating negotiation over which names come out. Mossad and Shin Bet, the security services, will be looking at all the names that the Palestinians want in the next transfer. And so there'll be this constant 24-hour checking of who's coming out and who's not. By the end of this 6 weeks, there should be 33 of those hostages out. Then phase 2 kicks in. That becomes Israeli soldiers, and it becomes the remains of hostages who've died in Gaza.
And based on what's happened over the last 24 hours, does it look like this ceasefire, this plan will last the 6 weeks?
I think so. As you know, Joe, yesterday when it looked all very shaky, when you and I were talking, my sense was it will go ahead. It did go ahead, and my sense now is that having got to this point, and who knows, it's the Middle East. Anything can happen. This place can blow up within minutes. But based on all the available evidence, I think we'll get through this first 6 weeks. Then it becomes phase 2. And of course, what would be hoped by the world would be that if they can get through each of these sort of steps, then perhaps they can at some point move on to the big prize, which is a serious, sustainable peace here, that these two people who've been warring for 70 years or so can actually live next to each other in peace and security.
Okay, John Lyons reporting there from Jerusalem.